they struggle with what is good about this work. And the thing that's been consistent that I've heard, when a job goes right, there's no better feeling than knowing that they solved a no-heat call and solving problems. It's problem solving literally 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. That message had to be, in my mind, boiled down to children in that vocabulary and how do you explain that, but also just telling it in a story-driven plot of making a solved problem real for children. And when I first wrote the book series, I just said to myself, I think there's potential here. Let's see what road this goes on. That was 5 years ago. And here I am now, 4 books later, educational toolkits and lesson plans for educators, all sponsored by the Air Conditioning Contractors of America.
Today's episode is brought to you by one of our show partners, Upfrog.
Upfrog is the OG when it comes to pricing transparency online. They find system replacement leads through paid ads and have developed an entire system to drive those hard-to-find system replacement opportunities, nurture the leads, and book them into sold systems before your team arrives to help you grow your business.
Hey, I'm Krista with MarketStorm, and we work with home service companies across the country. Quick question. If another HVAC or plumbing company in your area starts influencing homeowners before they ever hit Google, who gets the first call? By the time someone searches plumber near me, they've already been researching the problem. We use AI to detect those early intent signals and put your brand in front of them. So when they do search, your name already feels familiar. Visit marketstorm.ai or text us at 213-575-5448.
Hello, everyone out there in the podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching a Service Business Mastery podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tersh Blissett, sitting virtually next to my co-host, Joshua Crouch. And we have Ryan Kiscaden. Did I say it right?
You said it perfect.
All right,
Yes.
perfect. We got Ryan on the show
I'm
today.
gonna eat my words.
Yeah, I know, right?
I
Yeah.
totally thought Tersh was going to butcher it. So
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk to Ryan today. I saw you recently in Las Vegas. Is that right? We were in Las Vegas
Yes.
at ACA.
Yes, at their March event in Caesar's Palace, a beautiful interior with the statues and architecture. It was awesome. I loved it
Yeah,
there.
you could get lost in that place.
Yes.
It's massive. But yeah, and we are going to talk a little bit about one of your passion projects and actually having children's books about the trades. And I love this concept. I've met one other young lady that's done something similar, and we've talked about it in the past. I'm really excited because we all talk about we need, like, the trades are getting older and older and older, and we need to bring some young blood in. And a lot of times whenever we talk about that, our immediate thought process is to go to 15, 16, 17-year-olds and like try and browbeat them into getting into the trades or convincing them how fun it is. But we don't really consider the younger, like pre teens or anything like that. And I love the concept of like really not indoctrinating them, but almost like just at least educating them when they're really young and getting them interested into the trades. So with that being said, could you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you even got into doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's such a pleasure to be here. And yes, this is a passion project. I'm in year 5 of this crazy idea I had one day post-COVID, and it's still riding this train as long as we can. Yeah, my background, I'm 15 years in the plumbing and HVAC industry, just a myriad of jobs, I will call it. I will say this, as my wife always tells me, I'm a wannabe technician, okay? I've never been in the field. I've never turned a wrench. But my brother-in-law is a master plumber in New Jersey. My dad was an electrician. I grew up in a blue-collar area, never mind being in the industry, but I've never been in the field. And I've always said to myself, what would that be like and how can I help? And so you fast forward the 15-year career I've had, Tersh, as you mentioned, clearly we have a workforce development challenge, and it all stems from perception change. And a lot of this perception change starts with it's so many issues that you have to, it's like an onion, right? You take back the layers and you find more and more and more. But really one of the biggest problems that I saw and why I wanted to do children's books was we just don't do enough to explain the emotional side of working in the skilled trades. And meaning it's a good thing to do. It's noble. It's appreciated when completed. And I kind of came with this idea when I'm talking to my brother-in-law, and I have 2 children at home. He doesn't have any kids, but I have my 2 kids, to him, his nephews. I said to him, could you explain what you do as a plumber to my kids?" And he looked at me just shocked by not knowing exactly how to describe what he does every day. He wasn't sure. And the more you talk to plumbers, HVAC techs, and others without being very technical, it's really hard for them to explain what it is like to do this work and how it makes people feel. Because frankly, most of the time they're getting yelled at, by the homeowner, the building owner, or some other issue about not showing up on time, charging too much,
Mhm.
right? And so they struggle with what is good about this work. And the thing that's been consistent that I've heard is that they just when a job goes right, there's no better feeling than knowing that they solved a no heat call. There's no better feeling than, hey, the water wasn't working correctly. Now it is. And solving problems. It's problem solving literally 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day potentially. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
that message had to be in my mind boiled down to children in that vocabulary and how do you explain that, but also just telling it in a story driven plot of making a solved problem real for children and being appreciated, from these technicians that solve it. And so, again, I'm a marketing guy by trade, grew up in and around this. And I said, someone's got to tell their story, like my brother in law. And that's when these ideas start hitting me with the children's book.
So
I'm like, I can do that.
why children? Like, why start
Yep.
with the
That
kids?
was my thought. I was like,
Yep.
sure, you alluded. We've interviewed people that go to like the trade schools. We know business owners that talk at trade schools, or they go to Tersh. You've done some stuff even like
Yeah.
middle school age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I signed up
Interesting that
to
you
go
decided to go
to
even before that.
Yeah, well, I signed up to go to career day at the school. I show up at the high school and they're like, "No, you're supposed to be next door at the middle school." And I was like, "Whoa, wait a
Yeah.
minute. I didn't realize I
Difference.
was going to middle school." But
Yep.
you take it even a step further and you're like even younger.
Yeah, and the reason I did that, and you alluded to this in the beginning, was it's sort of a wide open market right at the moment, which is there's a lot of activity that's happening or tries to happen in middle school and high school, both legislatively to apprenticeship program at the contractor level to grants and funding, right? And certainly there's more we need to do there, and there is so much more that we can sort of unite, which is going to be another theme we'll talk about. Is this fragmentation on this issue is so rampant, and I'll talk about what I mean in a second, but to me, it was like, wait, kindergarten through 5th grade, not only is it sort of wide open, um, it's an opportunity to really explain something in a much more easier fashion. Like, okay, what is a piece of ductwork? What is plumbing? Right. And it's a more longer term play, certainly, because as I know and you guys know, contractors don't need a technician in 10 years from now. They need them tomorrow or yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So, right. And so, but my play on this was, okay, how do we kind of change the hearts and minds of these folks, the parents, the role models, the guardians, the teachers, even in that situation, K through 5, to not close the door sooner? Because frankly, Hollywood has not done us any service there on kindergarten through 5th grade. They haven't done anything really. And so, this was a way in my mind that we could sort of keep the door open longer to get them closer to maybe some of these existing programs or activities or things that were happening middle school, high school, and up. So again, like any good entrepreneur, you're like, okay, idea, what's the target market? There's people playing in that space already. Again, there's more you could do to disrupt that. But here was a space that nobody was in. That's when I said, wow, I'm a marketing guy, I can write that story. No one's there. Let's go after that. And that's kind of been the inspiration ever. Yeah.
It's interesting you say, 'cause like Hollywood, but there was a recent incident with the new DHS, Department of Homeland Security nominee. He was a plumber
Yeah.
by trade, and then he was getting mocked
Yep.
by certain, I don't know if there were certain members of Congress or
Oh,
whatever.
there's a
They
ton of people.
how a plumber shouldn't be able to be something in government or something like that. Well, the guy's worked at like just because he started as a plumber doesn't mean he's who he is. He's obviously worked his way up and done some good things, but it's just a cultural thing. It's really sad to see because some of the best hardworking, salt of the earth people work in the trades, and they get their hands dirty every day. And so what if they get their hands dirty and they're not sitting behind a computer? It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're lesser than. But it's always felt like that. And Ryan, I'm a lot like you. Tersh literally has parts of cars all over his sleeve. Like he's a gearhead. I'm not. I was always kind of a wannabe, like like I had to really rely on my team when I was in the HVAC industry because I could talk a good game, but I couldn't do what they did. I was a good
Sure.
grunt. I essentially ran tools for them when I needed them and lifted stuff because that's about all I could do. But I really respected that they could do what I could not and how good and proficient they were. But it's sad when you see this stuff play out, especially like something like, DHS has been in the news a lot this year. And you see something like that, and then everyone's like, well, I don't want my kid to be a plumber because plumbers are getting mocked online and they get treated like lesser than. And
Yeah.
it really sucks to see.
And I would tell you, I think the stereotypes are real, but they are starting to change a little bit, generally speaking. I think there's been some generational shifts there, particularly around AI, believe it or not. As AI, eats away at white collar work, I'm sure a lot have talked about this. It's really hard to automate a job that needs to be local on site in a home to AI, right? AI will assist you, but you can't automate that. And so I think some of the newer generation, and even more progressive parents and role models look at that and go, why wouldn't I at least have my kid look into that as an option versus, having that stereotype, put out there. And the other thing too is I love this story. So I have some neighbors, they're both lawyers. They have 3 children. They like me. Okay. And they like my family. And so I gave them copies of the books, the kids' books. I just said, hey, you should read these to your kids, no pressure, no whatever. Their youngest child will not stop talking about being a plumber and an HVAC tech. And to the point, at one point, they kind of called me and was like, I'm kind of mad at you about that. I thought they were going to be in a white collar job. And at this stage in their life, they're talking like plumber and toilet and water heater and all this stuff. And I'm like, but isn't that the point, guys? I mean, again, you're smart people as lawyers. You understand that how they earn a living ought to be really up to them. And your job as a parent, at least to a certain degree at that age, is to not close doors, but to keep them open as long as you can, right?
Mhm.
At some point, they're going to have to make a decision or be pushed down a path. But what in the world do they need to be pushed and shut down sooner at K through 5th grade? So I am with you. The stereotypes are real, but I do think they're changing. But I also think there's a lot that we all can do to help minimize that perception challenge. And one comment about that, again, I'm try to make this argument not on the rational side. I think there are so many messages out there about less debt, more income, all this rational messaging, which we need, but
Right.
we always miss this emotional connection piece, which is it makes you feel good on some jobs. 'Cause I know it's not every job goes well, but on
Mhm.
some jobs to actually
Standing in
help.
shit probably doesn't make you feel real good.
Well,
Right.
like the
I'm not saying
third
they're good in that all the
uh,
time.
you get that, like, the third callback and you're like, "Oh, this job is gonna be the bane of my existence." But then
Sure.
you're exactly right, though, the dopamine drip that you get, like, you get
Well,
that instant and hero, you're the hero of the story, like, not like, when you're talking marketing, you know, when you talk about, Donald Miller, building a story brand,
yes.
like, always make your client the hero and, like,
Yes.
you're the guide of the story. But as a technician, you become the hero. You are the one that saves them, from being, like, stuck in a 100-degree house, in the middle of the summer for 2 weeks, and you just solved the problem after being there for an hour or so. So that's definitely that's what people don't talk about enough whenever it comes to the trades is that the appreciation that you get from it and the gratification that comes along with it.
I've
Exactly
had
right.
techs tell me that, like, they feel like they're wearing a cape when they're able to solve, especially if it's a more complex problem. They
Mhm.
just if it's a little old lady, a widow, like, just the stories and stuff that you hear from them and how it makes them feel. I mean, imagine that, like, white collar work sounds nice because you sit at home and there are definitely perks to it, or you sit in an office and maybe you got your own office on the corner or something like that, but the work you do doesn't you don't get that because you're not helping someone one-on-one. You're doing paperwork or accounting or, whatever it looks like. You're not helping someone one-on-one, and that one-on-one factor of, like, you really helped the family that needed you today. And there's a
Right.
ton of gratification that comes along with that otherwise wouldn't be talked about. And it's interesting because so Tersh's oldest has been riding along with him. Um, so I have 2 sons, my stepson and my son. My stepson loves cars, wants to get into he's having trouble. He just turned 18. Arizona's a little weird with hiring, but he wants to get into something with the trades, whether it's auto mechanics or HVAC, something like that. And my son wants to be an electrician. So your point about the changing landscape, like I didn't push these things on them. It just happened to like they came somewhere along the lines. They're hearing, seeing, listening to something somewhere that is saying you really should give this a look, which is really great to see because for those that are listening to this, the next generation is starting to look your way. But the other problem we have in the trade, it has changed a lot. And Ryan, you've probably seen this, Tersh. I know you've seen this because you've been in trades a long time, is the way we train those young people and how we treat them once they get into the trades. They are a completely different personality than someone who's been in the trades for 25 years. It is different. And the education that needs to come along with that for our businesses and how we interact with those people and how we train them and how things might need to be a little softer approach than the way of like, man, you're like, fuck that one up. Like, what are you thinking? Like, slap them inside of the head. You can't do that stuff anymore because then they will want to quit. And they like, yeah, this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. And that becomes then we just literally reverse the cycle. And then all these people are like, oh, this sucks. I tried it. It was terrible. Right. So there's a huge dynamic there that, again, you talk about things that don't get talked about. It's also how we train and how we approach these people.
Going into like what Josh just mentioned there, what do you think the industry gets wrong when it comes to trying to attract the younger audience?
Yeah, I funny enough you asked that because I've thought a lot about this, and I think that there's a lot of desire and want, but again, everybody is so busy and so in the business that they're not working on the business sometimes. Where it's like, look, I'm literally taking care of what the next phone call was instead of I just got to get out of the business. And I think that both the contractor level, but also everybody up and down the vertical has been, this is what I mentioned earlier, has been so fragmented in this approach and frankly has been so sales driven, I'll call it, or just introspective on their own business efforts, right? Like, and I can say that with authority up and down the vertical, with manufacturer, wholesale distributor,
contractor. How's this going to benefit me right now?
Yep. I'm going to put out a $10,000 scholarship. I'll get a blip on the trade media publications and look at me. And frankly, it probably did nothing. It really did nothing. Right. And I mean it with all due respect. I think there are some great programs out there, but also, my gosh, what if we pulled together all of that funding, all of that effort, all of that enthusiasm, and this became not a competitive issue. It became the singular defining issue of the entire industry, which was we all say it's a problem, but we're all in this echo chamber. But we're not willing to work across aisles on this because of all the conflicts, right? Like, oh, will you sell to this person that's this dealer of that thing? And there's all these issues there when really those differences should be put aside. And it should be whole way up and down the generations to say, why is this industry great? And what can we do about that? And the likely place, frankly, that something like that exists probably is more NGO, nonprofit, trade association route than individual manufacturer, individual wholesale distributor, individual contractor. But the reality is everybody's doing their own version of this and then pounding their chests. And
there's a program that I am so proud that we Service Business Mastery have been a part of for several years now. And it's Excel, and they do a trade show, but it's all high school focused. And so like they'll do welding competitions, and I'll tell you, the welding industry, they have taken like full advantage of this. They have like manufacturers of all the equipment are like nonstop. They're out there in full force, and they got welding trucks and trailers and everything else. And they're trying to get other trades involved as well. But it's a Christian-based nonprofit, just like you said. And this is their full-time job is they literally are educating the youth on the trades and doing it hands-on too. And there's some of the youth who are underprivileged, but there's others that are coming from, like my children's school is a part of that competition as well. And I get to go there and in person and interview the teachers and some of the donors. And like there's a really big car dealership here in Savannah that they donate like vehicles to that organization. and they're at every one of the organizations talking to these youth, and they're like, yeah, we need technicians, but ultimately we just need better people in the world. And so, like, as long as we're doing that, then it's kind of like a giver's gain. As long as we're making better people in the world, they're naturally going to come see us at the dealership when it comes time to work on vehicles. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That is so good. But again, that's a good example of where, imagine if our industry just funneled dollars just into a group that just grew that, right? And it eliminates the conflicts, the barriers, and it's like, okay, we're showcasing. So the problem with that approach, frankly, is that there's two ways of attack it. You can either do outreach, which is very funding heavy and also hard to measure, right? Like, how do you measure that activity you describe as the welding? Like, did that person end up or the child end up in the welding vocation? We don't know. It's too long of a cycle to measure it. But that's one approach is, okay, it's outreach and takes a lot of funding, or you have to go the other route, which is legislative or regulatory fixes, right? Which is mandates, requirements. And I'm not advocating for it, but I'm just saying there's two levers. There's two levers you have really here. And Frank, like, some good ideas I've heard, at least on the legislative side, is stuff like, hey, if you're going to go to a 4-year college, let's eliminate, basket weaving. I know it's not the best analogy. Eliminate that.
Yes.
Right. But the elective ought to be, you need to go to the local VOTAC, right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
The plumber learns the hand skill, but also learns business management. Like, okay, that seems like a very easy, practical thing to do. It seems like it would benefit a lot of parties. And I'm not sure who it would harm, frankly. But my point is, like, if we all thought more critically about that, we probably could come up with solutions on both sides, right? Outreach and programmatic, and then also on the legislative and regulatory side.
Yeah, well, Brian, talking about changes and potential changes, have you, anyone that you've talked to or even any contractors worked with you, like, because they're in homes every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Most homes that they go and serve probably have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Majority, not all, but majority. And I mean, what an easy marketing thing. What a way to get them to know, like, and trust your company versus, hey, handing the kids a book, something that's valuable. But has anyone come to you? Have you talked to anyone about doing something like that on the ground level, like with contractors because I know like a lot of contractors they bring dog treats if they got dog. It's just, it's a like, and trust thing. So that way they like, wow, I really feel comfortable with this company. They like dogs.
Are you comparing dogs to kids? Like, you're giving dog
well,
treats?
There's a lot of
kid
similarities. They pee, poop, and eat a lot.
That's right. As I always tell everybody I know, you never invest in anything that eats. Okay, dogs, kids, wife, plants, and my problem is I've done all of those, but probably like you guys have. It sounds like
Yeah.
As far as, what are the strategies for contractors with like a tool like this? So this is where I think when I first wrote the book series, I just said to myself, I think there's potential here. Let's see what road this goes on. And that was 5 years ago. And here I am now, 4 books later, educational toolkits and lesson plans for educators, all sponsored by the Air Conditioning Contractors of America. And that very concept, cool, Josh, that you mentioned, is kind of where their head went for their members, which is, okay, there's a myriad of uses for this kind of content, books, these toolkits, lesson plans. And I have been blown away, not only by their level of enthusiasm and engagement and sponsorship, but also of their members, but also what their members do that I never would have envisioned. Okay. Like, I go to their event that, I know Tersh had mentioned prior, and I'm talking to some of their members. One of their guys is like, I have a community program. It does Easter eggs. It's like 20 kids every year. I bought 20 books to hand out to my next set of kids next year. Right. And cool. They put a sticker in, right? Like, I've heard folks that are like, look, I literally just called up my local county here. I got a directory of all of the elementary schools, and I donated a copy of each one of the books into the local school's library. So there are just so many things you can do with this type of content that, yes, can, I think, attach and tell the contractor story, right, if they're not able to, but also they can use it as a marketing tool, as well. And I just didn't even envision that. All I wanted to do was tell their story as I saw it. And then immediately, for people that get it, I love the grinds, the gears on start grinding right away in their head. And they go, I know exactly how I'm going to use that in my company without me having to explain to them how to use it, right? They're just like, oh yeah, I got this right away. Oftentimes, what I hear from the contractors isn't, yeah, I bought it because I have kids. I bought it because I have grandkids. Again, there's certainly uses for that, and I've heard that generally. But it's the other side, which is like they apply it immediately to examples like you mentioned, like I give it as a leave behind, or I give it out as an employee gift, almost as a thank you at the end of the year to give to somebody and donate into your local Rotary Club or whatever. It's so incredibly cool to see the uses that these guys have come, because they're very creative. They can be very creative in how they approach marketing, and this is one of the things that some choose to do, and they use it for.
Hello, home service professionals. Do you want to maximize your marketing budget? Then you need to be using call tracking from CallRail. Let's say you noticed a spike in new leads this month. To find out what's driving them, you just log into your CallRail dashboard. Is my new Facebook ad outperforming my other ads? Or is paid search knocking it out of the park? Or maybe it's time to retire those newspaper ads. Since CallRail assigns a unique phone number to each of my marketing efforts, I know where my best leads come from and which efforts to scrap. CallRail shows you your most cost-effective marketing channels so you can get back to business. Go to callrail.com/SBMpod and try it for free.
Today's episode is powered by Cirrus Systems.
Cirrus is all about removing the clutter and unnecessary touch points to run your home service business profitably.
They use AI dispatching to get the right tech to the right call automatically, and job time efficiency to ensure your entire team runs like a profit-generating machine.
Get a tech upgrade for your business at get.sarah.tech/service-business-mastery.
Ryan, what happens in 10 years if every contractor treated recruiting as a community education instead of just job posting?
Oh my God. Wow. What a question. First of all, I would think we would resolve this issue in math. It's a great question. Because I think that's really at the heart of this, which is just like a lot of things in life, as I mentioned earlier, you have two levers to help change this. I think outreach and then also legislative. Just like finding your next technician it's a next day activity, it's a year plan, or it's a 10-year plan, right? So you have to do all three of those, I think, well, and from a place of good intent to actually change this issue. But, again, I think it all starts at both the kitchen table. It starts at, in the schools. It starts at online. It starts at digital. It starts at all those things to change this narrative, which has been out there for too long, which is this is not sexy work. It is hard work on the body. It is, frankly, the rejects of society, as a bunch of people have told me, and I've heard, which is a side thread to that. I will comment on this. I talked to one of a well-known national trainer at a manufacturer in our industry, and when he saw the kids' books, and he made this comment to me. He said, I have ADD and I have ADHD. 80% of the people that I train in my program, again, representing the manufacturer, which is mostly contractors he's training, he said 80% of these people have ADD or ADHD.
Yep.
And I said, why do you, right? And he goes, I asked him, why do you think that is? And he said, there's two things. Actually, one is it is a skill or something that can actually help them dramatically in this work, because they can focus, they can take apart things, put it back together as is. He goes, it's a benefit or an enhancement. But secondly, and this is part of the perception challenge, is that most kids, because they were bad in school, were pushed down the VOTEC route because they had ADD and ADHD, and they're the bad kids, and they're the ones that have to go and do these programs. And it's like, in hindsight,
as a consequence.
And not as a benefit. Right.
And
exactly.
Here's the ironic thing. I literally just saw a post like this yesterday talking about like the school systems and stuff like that. And granted, I've been on like a big health journey, and I realized that most of the reason that our kids all have these things that didn't exist a long time ago is called crap in our food. Like bar none. That is literally one of the biggest problems we have, which I'm glad that there's some movement on changing, eating the whole foods and not the garbage crap that they put in a can and whatever.
Yeah.
But the post I was referencing was, oh goodness, I shouldn't have talked about the food thing. I lost my train of thought. It literally was talking about how, damn it, what were you just talking about, Ryan? Literally just went right out my head.
Oh, we're talking about ADD, ADHD, kind of like pushing people down a certain path based.
Talk about ADD.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not coming back to me either.
Hey,
Damn it.
Ryan, what's the name of all your books?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So they are called. It's part of our Next Up Trade series. So that's the name of the books. And we have The Air Came to a Stop, which is the English version of an HVAC story, and then there's The Water Came to a Stop, which is a plumbing version, but also an English story, language story. Then we have both those books in Spanish. That's why we say we have 4. So both those are available in Spanish as well. And yeah, the idea being is like, how do we kind of showcase plumbing and HVAC to children, both these technicians as the people that solve problems, and we appreciate it, but also that vocabulary embedded in the stories, stuff like water heater and PEX pipe to ductwork and vent and refrigerant, capacitor, and then reinforce with a thing called a word association exercise at the end of the stories to help them kind of understand, oh, wait, you talked about, a refrigerant. What is that? Is this what it looks like? Yes, that's what it looks like. Which, by the way, the ACA team was amazing at verifying that R32 looks like this. Okay, not the old R22 Freon stuff. So very accurate in terms of today's lexicon with everything as well, making sure that it was accurate. But that's what the books are called and part of the program.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Ryan, I remember what I was going to say now.
I figured you would.
So the ADHD thing that you mentioned, there was a post about the fact that you would talk about AI, and we talk about AI a lot on this show. The way kids are rewarded in school these days is by memorizing stuff.
yes,
Essentially memorizing different things, being able to take a test, which of course a lot of it's recall and memory and things like that. And there's a lot of people that just not that good at that. Like
yes.
literally, I have 2 kids. They're both completely different. One did not do well in school, can't memorize anything. He's the one that wants to go into trades. The other one, I honestly, seriously think she has like photographic memory because she like can see a map and then she just like recalls the information. I'm like, it was impressive. So she breezes, like literally breezes through school. She barely has to try, and A's and B's. But that's how society's like, oh, you're smart, you're a good kid, versus you're not a good kid. And then that not a good kid might, and we've both Tersh and I have shared experience. We've had some kids that in our households have gone down paths and done some things that we've wanted them to do. But I also think some of that societal pressure of them just feeling like they were an outcast, and then they go down that outcast route because they're not good at school, or they can't sit still, or they can't
Exactly.
whatever, memorize facts and things like that. And it's really sad to see. I feel like there's a lot bigger push, and maybe I just feel that in Arizona here, but for online school, for private schooling, for homeschooling. If I had kids older, because I didn't have money when I was, or any sort of success when I was younger, I would have probably homeschooled my kids if I had to do it over again and have them a lesson plan that was a little bit more curated for them, that was more experimental, versus let's go memorize some stuff in textbooks, because AI literally can do that stuff better than any of us anyway.
Right.
So what's the point of memorizing that stuff? It's like back in the day, like we used to can't use your calculator on a test. Remember we had like TI-80
You won't get to carry that thing around in
You
your
don't
pocket
gotta-
every day.
Yeah, well now it's literally like, hey
Yeah.
Siri, what's this divided by this? Like you don't even have to, you literally don't have to even know math or even English you just speak it into the phone and it tells you exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, Josh, I love all that, because I think there's a lot of truth in there about how we learn and how this next generation learns and what will replace what was traditional learning. I've seen a trend myself, both with 2 boys at home, 7 and 9. Like, how do they learn? How do they memorize things? And what will AI do there? And what's the policies going to be about AI? One thing, as you were talking, it kind of reminded me, I wanted to mention, I've learned, and this is my experience with my kids, but I would say to any contractor and anybody that wants to show folks this industry, the path to get into their heart and their mind is literally through your phone. And what do I mean? IoT and connected product is by far one of the, like, they understand this stuff immediately. My kid, I showed them the thermostat when we were on vacation recently. Like, oh, look at the thermostat at home. It's, 75 degrees or whatever. And my kids were just like, wow, that actually connects at home. We can change it and do all this. And like, yes. Now imagine if that was your job, child of mine, and say your job is to like work with people to both set up these controls once they've been installed, but also to install the systems that do that. All of a sudden the spark like kind of like lights up. So like, I feel like there's something to this IoT connected product and children and connecting them earlier to like, it isn't just a button I push that makes it work, but it's a button that tells it to do something that I can go fix that thing. That there's a piece there that no one has tapped yet, I feel like, but also there's that gamification approach as well, which even adult learners love gamification, but
Oh, sure.
children particularly love gamification. Okay. Like points awarded for doing activities, which now ranks me against my peers. If you do that and we think about learning in that way, especially with our industry, I think we'll succeed. One of the challenges, as you guys I'm sure know, is that our education system, when it comes to VOTech, forget about the everyday K through 5 for a second. VOTech, hands-on in community colleges and other places. Look at who are teaching these kids. Again, I love them. Okay, we grew up with them, we know them. They're not the generation that's closest to representing the 7 to 9-year-old anymore. How do we close that gap too, in addition to closing the gap and keeping the paths open for as long as we can, for these kids? There's a lot there to be said about the entire system in terms of how they get exposed to HVAC and plumbing, frankly.
Yeah, I like it. That's a really good point. Josh, do you have anything else?
I was going to ask the
Okay.
best place to find to
That's what I was going to
get
ask
your
you.
books, or to at least
Sure.
take a look at what they are and stuff like that. Where's the best
You-
place for someone to find?
You got it. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. This was a pleasure. I love the conversation.
Absolutely.
And if any of your listeners are interested in the children's books or the lesson plans or what we're doing with the ACCA, you can always start on my website, www.nextuptrades.com. That will get you in all the right places for the books, ACCA's program, ordering discovery kits. We call them now, not educational toolkits, but discovery kits. It's a really neat program that ACCA has. But if you're also an ACCA member, if you're listening to this, everything's listed on their website as well. So please visit there too. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So if any of your listeners have an interest to go to those sites as well, message me. I'd be so humbled if anyone has any interest in this stuff, or I can help you in any way to tell the next generation about all the work that you do as contractors. The work I wish I was doing some days, frankly. So that's best places to find me.
Ryan, we appreciate you hanging out with us. I mean,
course.
truly, this is a breath of fresh air. Speaking on this topic, Josh, you got anything before we wrap up?
No, I really enjoyed reading this. I didn't realize someone had this out there, so it was great to
Very
find
cool.
out and learn about it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
This is awesome. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to Ryan. And he's obviously a wealth of knowledge and is very passionate about this project. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week until we talk to you next time. We'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.